Richard Harris.
Richard Harris.
Richard Harris.
Richard Harris.
Richard Harris.
The Richard Harris Film Festival.
I hope it'll be a kind of a festival that'll grow and grow and grow in importance.
It's just wonderful that this is all in his name, because Harris would have loved this.
I think it's a great legacy, and not only that, as soon as I heard it was Richard Harris, I thought I've got to support some of this.
We need to understand our artists have given us a legacy that's profound, and very, very few in the history of cinema, but particularly in the history of our nation, has given us anything close to the legacy that Richard Harris has given us. That's how important the festival is.
Guys, thank you so much for coming into Fade Street Social for what is the programme launch of the Richard Harris International Film Festival.
Good afternoon. My name is Zeb Moore. I'm an actor here in Limerick, and I'm currently the CEO of the Richard Harris International Film Festival, which has been running for the last 7 years. We've just finished our 7th year. I was actually involved in the foundation and development of an arts festival here in Limerick called the Elemental Arts Festival, and that had been established for, I think, 2 years. It was going into its 3rd year, and we had just received funding from Limerick City and County Council, and I got a phone call from Rob Gill, who is a founder member of the festival as well, and Rob had made an application into the gathering, and I don't quite remember what the money was, but I think he received a grant of €500 or something, you know, and thinking he could put a festival together on €500 was a bit mad in its own instance. But he rang me and he says, but maybe Zeb, you can do something here. And of course, me being the mad person I am, said, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the first award that we want to give out tonight is a Special Recognition Award.
I'm Rob Gill. I'm the chairman of the Richard Harris International Film Festival. In 2013, I attended a meeting of the Gathering initiative, which was put out by Fáilte Ireland to try to encourage the diaspora to return to Ireland for a number of different events. One of those events that came out of that meeting was the Richard Harris International Film Festival. Met Zeb and Sylvia. We had a pretty limited budget, limited amount of money, and then we set up in our first year, a very modest festival. It was a day and a half. We screened 10 films, 3 features and the Harris retrospective, and that essentially was it in 2013. Like the first year we didn't know if we'd be back for a second year, which is I think true of any festival, any event like that. You just don't know if it's going to take off, you don't know if it's going to grab the public's attention, but it did.
We were still trying to make an inroad into the industry, and we were still trying to break the mould and see what works and what doesn't work, and every city is different. And Limerick is tiny compared to, you know, Dublin or even like Galway Film Fleadh had been established for, I think, nearly 45 years at that point. Cork had been running for 60 years. You know, so we were a tiny fish in a very, very large pond, and we were trying to figure out what makes us different. What can we do to be different? We were a little bit, I suppose we were a little bit edgy. We'd take a bit of a risk, and I think my attitude towards the festival was also looking at what Richard's outlook was, really, I suppose, you know. And Richard was not just the actor. He was the filmmaker, he was the great sportsman, he was the poet, he was the musician. So I was saying to the guys, why don't we look at all these attributes of Harris and start to bring these to the fore of what the festival's about, and give the festival, I suppose, a personality that nobody else has.
One goal is to create a living legacy for Richard Harris, mainly because he was the first of the Irish film stars to go abroad, to go to Hollywood and make it. So one of our goals and objectives, and when I spoke with Jared and with Damien, Richard's sons, on the first time, was to reassure them that, you know, his legacy would be at the forefront of the festival. One of the other things that Jared specifically asked me was that we would do what we could to promote young filmmakers, emerging filmmakers, because that's what his dad always was interested in doing, was encouraging young filmmakers. Daniel Radcliffe speaks a lot about that when he's interviewed about the influence that Richard Harris obviously had in his career as a very young kid, and how protective Richard Harris was of young actors and young filmmakers. So that's the other thing, is to ensure his legacy is there in Limerick and remembered, to promote young filmmakers and then also promote independent film.
What brought me to the Richard Harris Film Festival was that my film Cyclical, which I made as part of my final year project in Limerick's Institute of Technology, got selected to be shown as part of the student short program. I think the screening went very well. The crowd seemed to be into it. It's a social benefit, I think, and also a self-esteem benefit. The caliber was very, very high, and there's some really good original stories in there, some amazing visuals. Like, I couldn't really believe that the rest of the films I was watching were other students. Like, they just really good selection by the Richard Harris Film Festival.
We're here for The Dig, which I produced and Stuart wrote. We've known Zeb for a while now, so this is probably the third year that we've wanted to come. We live in the north, so we live in Belfast, so just spent 6 hours driving down here, and we've literally just arrived, so yeah, couldn't be happier.
The field was a huge influence for a film like ourselves, which is hugely rural, dirty, muddy, very Irish in its themes, and so from our point of view, it's a great privilege to show at a festival with his name on it. It's always a pleasure to come down and see, especially shorts, see who's coming up, see the talent that's always coming up. It's always a great inspiration, so really looking forward to that. And then
so you can like accost all the directors and give them scripts and then try and
work with real talent, yeah. Work with real talent, yeah.
Then we started to step it up a little bit. We looked at the music aspect, and I got to know a gentleman called Bill O'Reilly, who was a huge friend of Richard Harris. And Bill had huge contacts around the world who also had the connection with Richard. And one of those biggest names was music composer Jimmy Webb. So for me, it was a no-brainer to try and, you know, get on the phone to Jimmy and get him over here. And there was a great bond between Jimmy and Richard, and Jimmy did want to do something here in Limerick as part of the festival. He just said, I want to give something back. And then I remember getting a phone call from Mr. Bill Whelan of Riverdance fame. And Bill had asked me, was it true that I was bringing Jimmy Webb over? And I said, yeah, it is true. And I said, now that I have you on the phone, Bill, I'd love you to open up the proceedings. Would you be available? So Bill was absolutely delighted. So suddenly I had two of the biggest names in the music industry. And that kind of gave us huge recognition, not only here in Ireland, because every national radio station here, the Pat Kenny shows and the Ray Darcy shows were all onto us then straight away. And my relationship then with Jared Harris had progressed because Jared wanted to have more involvement in the festival and how it was progressing.
As I said, there are inspirational people coming into us throughout the morning. We've got some great guests in the last hour. And this weekend, Bank Holiday weekend, which we give the thumbs up to, but it is also the Richard Harris International Film Festival weekend. And Zeb Moore, who is the festival director, is with us in the studio, as is Richard Harris' son, the actor Jared Harris. Zeb, how important is it to have the family, and Jared especially, backing the Richard Harris International Film Festival here in Limerick?
Well, obviously, we're delighted. The festival is now running. This is its third year, and I think the significant difference for this year is that Jared and Heyman Harris have come on to the board of directors, and it's vitally important for the longevity of the festival as well. It's important for Limerick that these filmmakers are given this opportunity, because there's a lot of it. It's quite vibrant at the moment in the city with young filmmakers coming on, and it's important that they get this platform for them to screen their work.
Jared, do you feel a connection to Limerick yourself?
Yes, I mean, I do through my dad. I remember when we were here we used to come for Christmas and stay at the Dromoland Castle quite often, and he would take us, he'd get a big bus and he'd bundle us all into this bus and he'd take us on the tour, the family tour, and he'd point out all the buildings that was where the mill was, this is where, the various stories he had, and the stories about his grandparents and stuff like that. So
the last few years we are very grateful because we have received funding from Ultra Ireland and increased funding from Limerick City Council, which has allowed us to expand the film festival into a 7-day festival now, which last year had over 50 different events and screened over 150 films.
We also looked at bringing a more industry vibe into the festival as well. So we developed IMET, which was the Interactive Media, Entertainment and Technology Summit. That kind of gave us the opportunity to look at different mediums like VR, IR, MR. So this year we had a 2-day seminar in conjunction with Innovate Limerick.
So this was the first year we decided we'd experiment with a company called Samotion to put on a VR experience for people. Content providers are Immersive VR Education, a Waterford-based company, and they've made these amazing VR films and games. It's a wonderful way of bringing history to life.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Enda and I work for a VR simulation company at simmotion.ie. We are very proud to have been invited here to the Richard Harris Film Festival in Limerick. This week we have been showcasing new VR experiences. Berlin Blitz VR, Apollo 11 VR, Titanic VR. And SimMotion are the only company in Ireland which use a motion VR flight simulator.
This is something we would definitely want to expand going forward, and it's something we want to really explore. And it also has applications in real life in terms of medical training and stuff. So it's a wonderful form of technology. And it's only when you experience you can actually see its potential.
So this was my second time doing virtual reality, and I feel like each time it just gets better and better. I've always been one of those people who wanted to be able to go back in time, and it kind of lets you do that for just a smidgen of a moment, and it's amazing.
When we meet characters, we're going to meet characters on the day that their life's about to change forever. That's why we're meeting them that day. What happens to us when we can never return to being who we used to be? That's what we need to see in a scene. We need to see characters take risks and do things that they would never normally do. We need to see characters use ideas that they would never even conceive of under non-pressure situations. That's where we become compelled.
Terry has become a huge friend of mine now. Terry had done a movie called Patrick's Day, and this film, for me, I suppose for our group, this was at the pinnacle of filmmaking in Ireland. And we screened Terry's movie Patrick's Day. It was starring Mo Dunford. Mo, again, is a phenomenal actor and a huge Irish name to come into the industry. And his career was just kicking off at the time, and he's gone on to do some incredible stuff like Vikings and various different shows. But we became very friendly, and Terry had a huge graw for Richard Harris at the time. So it was a no-brainer for him to come in and get involved in the festival, and since then Terry will always do our acting classes.
I think people are brave beyond belief. I think it's amazing to be in a room with a bunch of people who don't know each other and who have the courage to just dive in. It's fantastic to see people having the courage to put themselves out there to see what might happen next.
Terry's just a wonderful master of teaching the art of acting. Terry has had acting classes in Dublin for a number of years, and just from Zeb and I speaking to the people who have graduated from those classes or attended those classes, they all say that they've done many different acting classes before, but nothing compares to Terry, just in terms of how he propels you out of your comfort zone.
My name is Krzysztof Matkowski. Originally I'm from Poland, but I'm an actor in Ireland. And today just we finished amazing masterclass for actors with Terry, and it was really valuable. Well, I'm looking forward to opportunity for more and more masterclass like this we had today. So I'm so happy.
Like any film festival in the world, networking is key, as far as I'm concerned. If you're not networking in this industry, you're doing nothing.
There's no point going to a film festival and just watching your own film and leaving. You know, you might as well be kissing your reflection in the mirror. You need to look at the other films that are in your block, and you need to learn from those filmmakers. And if they're there, you need to meet them and you need to talk to them, and then you kind of go, you know what, I love the cinematography in your film, and the other one goes, you know, I love the writing in your film. And from that you can collaborate, and you have different people from different countries as well, and that's the whole benefit of going to film festivals.
You know, what's the significance of a festival? It's to create work. It's to obviously honour the filmmaker and the work that they've done throughout the year, but also to make those connections with filmmakers so that more work is being produced.
And what you will find too is filmmakers, and even the most experienced filmmakers, are very open to giving advice to students and to being helpful to our students, whoever they are, whatever stage they are in the film industry, whether they're an A-lister, because they were at that position themselves once, and they remember that, and they know that these guys that they meet who are student filmmakers are going to be their colleagues in a few years' time as well. They're going to be people they're going to want to collaborate with.
I've been coming here since 2014. My first film that I actually got in here is called The Current. So this is my fourth short film. It's called The Space Between Us. But the reason why the Richard Harris International Film Festival is so good is because it's inclusive and brings filmmakers together. So sometimes, you know, you go to a festival and it's a very isolated event. You go to the screening, you know, no one really talks to each other. Whereas when you come here, people talk to each other, they go for drinks and they socialise. So I actually met Elaine Kennedy in the foyer 2 years ago, and then this morning we screened The Space Between Us. So I wrote it, she directed it, and she acted in it. So that's essentially what film festivals should be, is bringing filmmakers, actors, producers and everyone together.
The Richard Harris Film Festival went into negotiations, I think, 3 years ago with the Limerick Film Festival, and we amalgamated the two film festivals, and I think that was important because it gave us our student connection. It also gave us our connection with the universities. It also, Simon Maguire had this phenomenal awards show that he did every year as part of that. And I think it's important that you recognise filmmakers and give them the night out and the red carpet and a few drinks.
It's a way of giving recognition to filmmakers, I said, not just the nominees and not just the winners, but everyone who's there and all our guests and the volunteers and everyone involved with the festival. So that's why it's worth making it particularly special.
When the amalgamation happened with the Limerick Film Festival, our gala evenings just went way above and beyond. So we normally host the gala evening in the Millennium Theatre, LIT. It's still under the eyes of Simon Maguire, but we've progressed it a lot insofar as, you know, we now introduce acts. It's live streamed around the world. So when you have the interval acts on, and it's just great fun because people get an opportunity to come in and talk to various different filmmakers. Like last year, there was a really gorgeous moment where there was one young student filmmaker who had won an award, but none of her family could be here. But she came up to me in tears afterwards to say, it's unbelievable that I've won the award, and all my family were able to watch it online as well. So that was really it's a nice moment. And there's always kind of really lovely, magical moments that happen throughout the festival anyway.
I think it's fair to say other festivals don't have that type of experience. It's what people who've attended a lot of other festivals have said. That's what separates it. Why we do it, why we separate it, is to just give due recognition to people and show, you know, this is your night for celebration of film, and also it's a celebration, obviously, of Richard's life ultimately as well. People enjoy it, and it's our most popular event. It's what people really look forward to, and it's something that's a very, very much an important part of the festival, and will continue to be as long as the festival's there.
I just think that everything worked. I mean, it could have been a flop. It could have been a failure because the expectations were so high. That's the dangerous part of it. Can it live up to the expectations? and has certainly surpassed the expectations, I think.
Talking about Richard, and Richard obviously born in Limerick, probably the most significant actor, Irish actor, to come out of Limerick, if not to come out of Ireland.
He's there at the centre of the festival, he's there in spirit, very much so. And he's a multi-talented artist, essentially. So that's why we're more than a film festival, more than just screenings. That's why we have the live events. It's to pay tribute to Richard.
I think it's important for us to kind of get that message, because he was such a prolific and magnificent actor. The legacy of Richard is important to the festival. Obviously, it's important to his family. And I think this festival is probably the biggest legacy project to Richard Harris in the world. And I think it's important that people of Limerick understand the legacy of that. And I know we've a statue here in Bedford Row, but I think it's important that people of Limerick kind of embrace that and try and just enjoy it. Like, the festival is there for Limerick people to enjoy.
Richard's always going to be remembered because his canon work is there and stands for it. He's a 2-time Oscar nominated, multi-award winner. He's played, all these so iconic roles. Bull McCabe, Dumbledore, played King Arthur. So his legacy, his work is always going to be there. But this is a real living legacy because it brings his work to a younger audience, and it reminds people of the influence that he has had on younger actors and on younger artists. And so we do want to ensure that his legacy is very much alive in the city, and we think the festival plays a big part in doing that.
I think it's a great legacy, and not only that, I happened to work with Richard for 3 months on a film, so I got to know him. And then when I found out that it was happening in Limerick, I thought, hey, listen, I've got to come for this. Do you know what I mean? And especially it was when it was started. I think it started a couple of years before I started coming here. So it was real interest, especially as I spent a lot of time with him. I would spend a lot of time talking to him in the mornings before we went on set. So that was a real interest to me. And especially as soon as I heard it was Richard Harris, I thought, I've got to support some of this. Do you know what I mean? So, and I've had a great time over the years in supporting this, certainly with Zeb and stuff like that, and Sylvia. So it's been great in that respect.
He loved young people and creative people, and what's with the festival, of course, he was very big on honesty, to bring out the best in whatever he did, as your filmmakers would do. It's a nurturing process, and in his 7th year, he'd be very happy to see where this has come.
Legacy, I think, was very important to him, and a legacy in Ireland was very important, and that's why he set up he had set up grants during his life for students to go to a Jesuit college in the States to train to be actors. So he was already thinking about legacy in his own lifetime. So I think the idea of having a festival in his honour wouldn't surprise him in the slightest, and he would think it would be very fitting,
It's just wonderful that this is all in his name, because Harris would have loved this. Harris would have loved films, people getting the opportunity to make films, be screened, be seen by people, allowing people to talk, just like the acting community, not just the acting community, but the film community itself get together, and just there's a great social side as well.
And it can only, I suppose, get better and bigger since he was such a well-known figure. I hope so, at least, that Limerick people would appreciate him. I hope they do. I hope they do.
Make it